Good morning. We are talking to Tanae Greenhood with Colorado State University, Pueblo. Good morning, Tanae.
Good morning, Erica. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for taking some time to talk to us about your coursework and your experiences using our platform and prior to our platform. I thought that today would be a good opportunity for us to talk and capture the conversation so that we could share it with some of your peers on campus.
Okay, great.
So, if you wouldn't mind, can you please tell us a little bit about the courses that you teach and the type of assignments in those courses?
Yes. So I've been teaching, let's go back just a little bit. I've been teaching since 2014. And so initially when I started teaching, I was teaching primarily accounting principles 1 and 2. So intro to financial accounting and intro to managerial accounting. And then more recently, I've been teaching a lot of other accounting classes. So income tax, advanced financial, intermediate accounting 2, as well as several of the principles of financial and managerial as well. When I first started teaching out, I relied heavily on the book sources and the platforms that they offered. And I think I was just overwhelmed and didn't know what else to do. So that's what I used. And I very quickly started seeing that students were just cheating, or they were just learning how to manipulate the platform, but not learning the accounting. And so I was discouraged with that. So I started creating all of my own assignments in Excel. And that took a ton of work to set up and a ton of work to grade. And so then I realized that I had to figure out a different way because I couldn't get them the feedback that they needed fast enough. And so I created an Excel sheet that was mostly grading itself. And by that, I mean, I had a super hidden tab that would grade for me and count if it was right or wrong. But it wasn't perfect and there was lots of flaws. So I still had to spend time finding where the system wasn't perfect and then providing feedback where necessary. And so and then the other big problem that I had was that students were sharing those files. And so I spent a lot of time creating these assignments and getting them as close to perfect as I could on my own self-grading system. And then within one semester, the answer keys were being sold online. And so that was really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the person making the money, if you're wondering.
You mentioned students sharing the files and then the documents being shared online, and that's something that instructors are seeing across the board in different disciplines that they teach. And so one of the features that ExPrep does offer is a cheating feature based on the coding of each individual worksheet. Um, Students can't find it. It's kind of hidden within within the workbooks when they download them, but we do offer that. So in thinking about all of what you said about how things were going before and what you had in place to help with grading, how has your experience changed since you've been using XPrep?
Well, it's been so wonderful because ExPrep is grading so much better than my self-graded tab that I created. I thought the tab I created was really awesome, and then ExPrep showed me that it could be way more awesome. And so so that's been great because it's graded, but also it's graded way more accurately. And anytime there is some sort of mistake in the grading system, like let's just say that somebody put AP instead of accounts payable, I can add that as a correct solution. And so every single time I teach, the grading tab is becoming more dynamic and more perfect. And that means less and less issues for me to correct. And so that's given me a whole lot more time to do other things like create multiple versions of every assignment, which helps with the cheating even more. And so I have used the cheating feature offered by ExPrep, and that's caught several students and stopped the cheating very quickly for me, because once they saw that ring was, like I caught one ring of students, that the information spread very quickly to not share your file. And so that helped a ton, but also because I'm not spending so much time grading my own assignments because ExPrep is doing it and doing it well, I've had more time to create multiple versions. And then that also helps minimize the file sharing that happens because I can have multiple versions within one class, but also from semester to semester, I can rotate the versions I'm using. So, the students that took the class in the fall don't get the same assignments if they have to take it again in the spring.
Hmm. Hmm. That's smart. And I definitely understand how, as a professor, because I teach business courses myself, we are sometimes stuck in constraint of time, having to turn around feedback and grading. And that time that we spend doing that takes time away from us being able to add value elsewhere within our courses. And so I appreciate you saying that you can now do the multiple versions, because this is something that you couldn't have necessarily put the time into before, making those changes and those edits. To accommodate that, because you had to focus on the turnaround time and the feedback. And we get such a small window to get those done.
That's you saying that makes me think of another thing that I've really appreciated from ExPrep is the ability to give student feedback. And so because ExPrep has the feature where it can give feedback when a cell is incorrect, it's been able to minimize the work on me, because a lot of times when students miss a certain cell, they usually are making the same mistake. So I can kind of look back over my time of grading these assignments and say, if they missed the calculation of net income, the general feedback I'm going to give them is XYZ. And of course, that doesn't work perfect for every single student, but usually it is. And then if that feedback isn't what they need to get them to the solution, they can reach out to me. But I've had very few students that have had to reach out to me for further feedback. Like the general feedback that I've put in works for 99% of my students. And I have been able to layer, I mean, it takes me a little bit of time, but I've been able to layer some of the feedback so it's more broad, like, revenues minus expenses the first time. And then the next time they see it, I'm saying, look at page 178 in your book for an example of this. And
Mhm.
and so that's also been a huge benefit. It's taken me some time to set it up, but the time saved has been far more valuable than the time it took me to set it up.
Mhm. So if there was one thing that you would want your peers in accounting, other accounting professors, to understand about the value of XPrep, what would that be?
One thing, Erica, one thing. I, hmm, it's a mix of things, because also something we haven't even talked about is the importance of using Excel itself and the ability to grade for their use of the formulas that I'm asking them to use. And that has been so incredibly valuable to me, and I think our employers as well, because we've had so many employers and community members saying, like, our students don't have some of these other skills, and they can teach them a lot of the accounting, but they need them to know how to use Excel. And so that created a huge problem for me trying to do both. And grading for their use of formulas was impossible with my little spreadsheet that was grading for me. And so honestly, I think that's one of the most important things, is the ability, or like the requirement for them to use Excel properly and to learn how to use Excel, and that XPrep can grade that they did use a formula, or they did use a specific formula, like when I tell them to use the present value formula, that they are. And that's one of my favorite features.
Awesome. Awesome. Have you heard anything from students about their experience?
Yeah, I've had some great feedback. I was actually kind of worried, because in all of my previous semesters prior to XPrep, when I was using these Excel assignments, students always complained on my teacher evaluations for making them use Excel.
Mm.
There's always a handful that were like, I don't
Mhm.
know why Miss Greenwood makes us use Excel. This isn't an Excel class, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that has completely gone away. And and the only reason I think that is because I'm using the training materials to teach students how to use Excel integrated
Mhm.
into my class with my own accounting assignments. And so
Mhm.
I think now they're feeling really empowered.
Mm.
And so previously they were struggling with Excel. Now I'm getting great feedback like, oh my gosh, I learned so much about Excel. It's helping me in my other classes. I'm so glad Miss Greenhood uses XPrep, and things like that, where they're
Mhm.
getting, like they're really excited about using Excel rather than hating me for forcing them to use it. So that's exciting.
Right.
But I've also had students that have made comments about, like, positive comments about how quick the feedback is and how helpful the feedback is.
Mhm,
And so, of course, they're not saying thanks to XPrep for quick feedback because they don't realize that that's the case. But I
mhm,
know on the back end that I wouldn't be able to give them that quick feedback without XPrep. And
mhm,
so I think that that's kind of like an indirect response from students that might not realize the key part that XPrep is playing. But
mhm.
it's I personally have to give the credit to XPrep.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that and your experience before and after implementing XPrep in your course. Before we close out, is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to mention or touch on?
I think that the one thing I would like to say is that whatever you have in your class, whatever your setup is, however crazy your assignments are, I think it's worth taking the time to let XPrep look at them and see what they could do for you. Because I personally thought like my assignments were too big and too complex and too XYZ, fill in the blank. And I was so wrong. And I wish that I wouldn't have, I think I was maybe a little bit of pride thinking I already had it worked out and my assignments were awesome and they were self graded. And I wish that I would have kind of put that pride away sooner and talked to XPrep sooner because I think I could have saved myself a lot of struggle and time and helped my students, more than anything, helped my students sooner.
Mhm. I think you offer a very valid point in that we all consider ourselves experts in our subject matter. And so I think the asking for help or allowing someone to show you an alternative option that you didn't come up with sometimes is a barrier. And so I think that that's valid to say, hey, give it a try. Let's see what we can do. You may be surprised. And so I think that that's very valid to
And it's
ask. Oh,
okay to get help.
yeah. Yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for your time today. I do appreciate you taking some time out to talk about your experience and sharing it with your peers. And um, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Absolutely. Thanks, Erica. You too.